Welcome, our dear listeners, to yet another brilliant episode. Today, we've got big surprise for you. We've got a terrific coach, a new guest on the platform, who is going to share with you years of experience that will absolutely blow your mind off. And today, we will help you understand how to love every Monday again by becoming
Yes.
the CEO of your career. And today, I would like to invite my co-host, Coach Shilpa, to introduce our guest. Coach
Yes,
Shilpa,
with
take it
pleasure as
away.
always. So, welcome our audience and our viewers for Lead Talk podcast as well as Lead Talk TV. And we bring here again a very interesting and powerful episode as we always do because
Yes,
we are very passionate about your success and we are sure that you are committed to your success as well.
yes,
And we have been waiting for this special guest for some time now, and we are glad that we could make it with one and only Tammy Alvarez, CEO and founder of Career Winners Circle. So,
yes.
welcome, Tammy. Welcome, Bopod. And we are
Thank you
glad
very
that you're
much.
here.
Yeah, it's great. I'm glad we're finally on the calendar. We're doing this. It's been a long time for both of us trying to get it together. And I'm just thrilled to be here today. So thanks again for the invite.
Yes.
Welcome, welcome.
Go
Thank you
on.
so much. So, dear viewers and dear audience, Tammy Alvarez, CEO and founder of Career Winners Circle. And Career Winners Circle is a comprehensive collection of coaching and training programs designed to strengthen the leaders to grow their careers quickly and sustainably. That's very important. And Tammy's spirited break all rules approach blends decades, almost 3 decades of her C-suite experience on Wall Street with pragmatic and result-based coaching style. She has coached over 150 ambitious professionals and guided them to reach their goals that had eluded them for so long for one reason or the other.
Mm.
What Tammy likes most about her career as a coach is witnessing her clients experience these light bulb moments and watching their whole life come into focus when they course correct their careers. And
Yes.
she is an inspirational coach, trainer, and epic storyteller who delivers transformative learning experience for her global client base. And we just understand that now she's in for a big surprise for you all as she is scaling up her business model, making many more opportunities available to you all. So you stay till end so that you do not miss the greatest opportunity of the year. And she believes
Beautiful.
in the
Mm.
heart that every successful business is a leader who inspires with courage. So over to you, Dr. Gerard, for adding some more flavor to that introduction.
Absolutely. We haven't even finished our introduction. This just tells you the kind of person we have right for you. Now, what makes Tammy absolutely stunning is the fact that she's always there and ready to help mid to senior level executives who are in their senior years, especially those in the finance industry, those in science and tech and engineering, ready to take them to the next level. She is also absolutely wonderfully prepared to help leadership managers, those who are leading others, to lead them more successfully and make sure they build high performance teams. She's also always ready to help individuals who are entering the C-suite, those who are just in their early years, entering the C-suite executive positions for the first time so that they can crush it. And that's what Tam is able to help them with. And finally, executives who are looking to change. Now, a few moments from now, she is going to be sharing her own journey of how she left her 30 years in corporate experience into now being a CEO, a founder of something very elaborate that she's helping over 150 people, who one of them could be you. And what makes Tammy very unique is her ability to help clients in a myriad of ways, including things like job hunting, making sure they're successful during their interviews, those who want to remain in the career, and those who want to change the career. Tammy has
Yeah.
all what it takes for them to move from corporate to the outside world, just like she's been able to do herself. So she has a group doing leadership development. If your need of the hour is leadership development, doing operational excellence is another skill and another unique area she contributes, including operational excellence to just make sure your business and your company is up to speed. And if you need help with resume, Tammy and her team are right there. And finally, the most important thing as we now speak about the new world, where economic downtown is an issue, Tammy has a toolkit for you. And so this is the guest we have. And over to you, Shilpa, just to take us.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And what we love is that Tammy has a special message for you all, that
Yeah.
everyone deserves to love Mondays. When you are working in a career or running business that lights you up every day, your whole world changes. And we always start, Tammy, with the beautiful quote. So today we are dedicating this episode to your quote. So I would read it once again. Everyone deserves to love their Mondays. When you are working in a career or running a business that lights you up every day, your whole world changes. That's so true and so profound. So, viewers and audience, in today's episode, now we deep dive into how Tammy transformed herself from being a corporate executive to being a world-class, multi-talented coach. And we also explore the focus of today's session is how you can create a life and an impact so that you love every Monday morning again and become a CEO of your career. So if you stay till end, Tammy is going to share her career strategies and other golden nuggets. And she has a very special gift for you all.
Yes.
Which is the ultimate career strategic guide, which we will make available to you for downloading at the end of the episode.
Exactly.
Do not miss a single minute of this episode. So let's get started. So Tammy, welcome back again. And we want to know a little more about your life journey. So what exactly triggered you to seek a greater success in your career?
I've always been ambitious and I've always had a high risk tolerance. And I think it was because I came up through the ranks in corporate in a very different way.
Okay.
I never went to college. I didn't get my college degree until I was 40. And I was a female in Wall Street, right? And in the tech. So I was usually the only female and almost always the youngest person at the leadership table. So I had to get there differently. And because of that, and because I felt like I had something to prove to myself to say that I could do it, because everyone else was saying you can't, I always took those big risks. And so I grew my career by really stepping into the things that people were too afraid to do. And found a way to be successful, both for me and my teams as I was leading them. And so, fast forward 30 years later, and, I'm a COO for, a Fortune 100 company, managing director, managing 2,000 people in 36 different countries, and handling some of the biggest transitions and crises that the financial services has to offer. And, so I became a transformation expert throughout my career. And I loved it, right? Whenever it was running out of the burning building, my team and I were running in. And I just loved that adrenaline. And I just lived for like the next big thing and helping, my teams grow their careers and become really good leaders and solve really complicated problems. And I loved it until I didn't. And then one day I remember, it was right after the analyst call one quarter, and we used to live for the analyst calls, right? This was our Super Bowl. So like either we had to defend our earnings or, temper enthusiasm because we had a really good quarter and like we didn't want them to expect another one this quarter. And so we just loved all the prep and like what would happen and which analysts had the got you questions. And, that was always a big deal for us. And then of course, going out for cocktails afterwards and commiserating. And so I remember sitting in my office after an earnings call and I'm like, I am so bored out of my mind. I can't stand it. I'm like, if I have to do this another minute, I'm going to lose my mind. And it was at that point that I realized it was time to make a change, another big change. That made several throughout my career. And so the timing was right for me. My daughter was graduating college, so she was off the payroll. A big fancy apartment, the rent was the lease was coming up for renewal. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to sign up for this again. And even though where I was feeling a bit bored and uninterested in the work. I love the people. The work was not interesting. I just decided it was time to do something really, really different.
Mhm.
And so long story short, I cashed out of Wall Street, moved to a tropical island off the coast of Belize in Central America, and started this coaching business. And so that was
Wow.
5 years ago. People thought I was out of my mind. Because we were doing Zoom before anybody knew what Zoom was, right? This is
Yes.
before COVID. This is before all this is easily for everyone to do. And so no one could believe that I had abandoned the role that everyone aspires to have, to just go live the beach life and see how I would do as an entrepreneur. So that's how I got here.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. That's so
Wow.
fantastic. And I can completely resonate. And we have shared our stories before. It's like transitioning after 3 decades when people think, oh my God, what's happening to her? Why is she even doing that? Right. And you took that leap of faith. We want to understand what was that reason for you that you felt now this is done for me. Now I'm moving towards what excites me. So
Yeah.
what made you do that exactly after 30 plus years of corporate life, leave that behind and start your own business?
Yeah. So I've always been if you don't like it, change it kind of girl. So, but I always had, and then changing it had always been a different corporate position. So whether, it was going from big banks to small banks or, industries that are around financial services. So I found my joy in mixing it up in terms of the type of organization and the level of that I would work in. And so that's when I was bored or just like surrounded by idiots. And I'm like, I got to get out of here, whatever it was, that's what I did. But this time was different for me because I really felt like it was just going to be the same acronym, different crap, right? Different logo, different paycheck, same, and it was like, I've done this 100 times and I don't want to do this anymore. And so that's really what drove me. And I'd never throughout my career was like, you should have your own business. And I'm like, I don't think I'm passionate about anything to do this. Right. And so I'd never really thought, oh, someday I want to do this. The closest I got to wanting to coach was thinking in my soft retirement, I'll do executive coaching. And that's pretty much all I thought about. And that was it. Right. That's all the thought I'd ever given to it. And so I was really thinking about what do I want to do next? Another corporate job was going to be soul crushing. And, and let's face it, you start to age out, especially in Wall Street. And the politics was exhausting and I was just sick of it. Like the things that I loved about it before, it was no longer giving me the energy and really fueling that passion. And, so as I was thinking about it, I was like, you know what? I have seen thousands of people have rock star careers, and I've seen thousands of people that are talented just completely blow it. And, and there's really no rhyme or reason why, some people crush it and some people don't. And so I'm like, I need to help these people. Like I've seen a lot. I want to share my experiences and I want to take the work that I was doing with my team, because once I got bored with the work, I put my energy into the team because that did fuel me, right? In terms of helping my leaders get where they wanted to be. So I've decided I'm going to take that a little bit more mainstream. And I never expected to really be in a role to help people pivot careers. It was never something that was on my radar. I was thinking I would help, people learn how to be transformational leaders because that was my area of expertise. And, people usually suck at that. So I was like, oh, there's definitely a need for this. And so I figured I'd try that. But I also had another thing. I did not want to have a business to business sales model.
Okay.
Because I was still addicted to the work. And I knew that if I had gone and sold coaching services to a company, that I would be back in there doing the work that I didn't want to do anymore. So I forced myself for the first 3 years to have a business to consumer model, specifically just to force myself to have that change. And so as I was, and we can certainly talk about the entrepreneurial journey, but it took me a while to realize that I actually have to just listen to what people want instead of go out with what I think they need. And such a desire for people who are in there, they've got 10 to 15 years left. They hate what they're doing. They've got big houses, ex-wives that they're paying for, lots of toys. So they can't sell everything and live in a yurt. And they felt stuck. And so I didn't expect to be helping people make those career changes. But when that came, so it kind of found me. And so now when people do these programs, it's amazing. They're in a role they've never done before within 4 to 5 months. And they're on average making 20% more. And these are senior people with very big paychecks. And so this is a big deal. And so that's really where I was like, oh, this works. How fun, right? And then it's like, okay, how do we scale this? And so, so that's really where I was able to take my life's experiences, put some structure around it to really help people get to where they want to go. Because I'm not a life coach. I'm not, one of those manifest your way to success kind of coaches. I've got partners that do that very well. That's not me. But I do believe that mindset matters. And I do believe that in our careers, it has such a fundamental impact on our entire life, right? It's amazing. And so when you suddenly step into something, and we're recording on a Monday, and like, how did you guys feel last night? Like, I was excited for today, right?
Yeah.
Most of the people I coach, like Sundays are the worst because midday you're like, oh, here we go again, right? You start looking at your calendar, you start replying to emails, crazy. And the thing that breaks my heart is people believe fundamentally, and this is where the rule breaking comes in, is that it's supposed to feel like this. Like, no one is supposed to really love their job. That's a pipe dream. No one really feels that way. We're all kind of stuck in this. And so that light bulb moment, Shilpa, that we were talking about before, when they're like, oh, hang on a second. Like, I don't have to suffer anymore. I am in control and I can make different decisions for myself. That is just, for me, just blows my mind, right? And I still am getting emails from clients that I worked with years ago, where they're like, these skills that they learn stick. Okay. And they're, and it's like, you're always in my head. I'm like, good, I want to be in your head, right? That little, voice on your shoulder. And it helps them just navigate a more successful outcome for themselves. And that's really where all my joy comes from now, is just really that, and then helping other coaches serve their clients in the same way.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful. Yes, Coach Gerard.
Yes. So a little bit about the because one of the things, Tammy, I noticed that the way you transitioned your career was not typical, right? It was a little different. So if you had to deconstruct in some succinct way for people who are kind of more step-by-step approach, how would you describe how you went from the Wall Street to now being where you are?
Yeah, I made a lot of mistakes. How I got to Wall Street in the beginning, right? So mistakes are my jam. I'm good at them. But I'm really good at using them to learn and fail forward, and learn quickly, right? So I think for people who are considering becoming an entrepreneur, there's a lot of things to think about. Money is obviously a thing, right? No question. That is a necessary, ingredient to all of this. And, fortunately, I had a pretty good severance package that I was able to leverage, right, in terms of stock and stuff like that for the first couple of years. So that did give me a bit of a emotional cushion to I didn't feel like, oh my God, if I don't, get a client tomorrow, I'm going to have to go back to corporate, because I live on a tropical island right now. And that saying, go big or go home, for me, that was literal. Like, if this fails, like, my idea of failure was having to go get a job back on Wall Street, making $500,000 a year again. Like, that is the worst possible outcome for me. I'm like, I don't want to have to do this again. And so that's really what fueled me. But there's a few things that I did wrong, which I think I want to share with everyone, because,
go ahead.
If you're early in your journey or you're thinking about it, don't make the same mistakes I did, right? Make new ones, because they're more interesting. And so, I think the first thing I did wrong is I came in assuming I knew what my people wanted.
Okay.
And you know what? I knew what they needed, but as it turns out, they wouldn't pay for what they needed.
Okay.
Program that I built without talking to anyone, and figuring, okay, all of these leaders that are in transformational roles, like, they're not good at this, so let me show them how to do it. Well, no one would pay for that because they didn't see that as a pain point. They didn't see it as a problem.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, well, that was a waste of 4 months. Now what do I do? Right. And so I think that the most important thing, if you're thinking about, before you even start your company, talk to people and find out what is it that not only are they struggling with, but are they willing to pay for to solve?
Okay.
Right. And whether that's business, whether you're going to in a business model, or whether you're doing business to consumer, before you even create anything, people and ask them what they want. Like, what pains do you have and what would you pay to solve? Are they big enough that you would actually write a check to fix this problem? Because then you're narrowing in on, on an area that there's actually demand.
Okay.
I used to also think, oh, there's so many coaches in this space. Like, how can I ever be successful? And let's face it, there's a ton of competition out there. But I had, forget which I listened to all the influencers. We'll talk about influencers in a minute.
Yes.
One of the things that I heard, which actually made sense, is like, if there's a lot of coaches in that space, that means there's a demand.
Yes.
And it's much easier to break into something where people already acknowledge that this is a thing versus saying, oh, there's too many here. Let me go try something new.
Okay.
Because when you're trying to create a new market, as a first-time entrepreneur, 9 times out of 10, you will fail.
True.
So hopping onto something that's already established, that there's a lot of competition, great, because you don't need them. There's a lot of competition. Right. Yeah. So when you're thinking about, it's like, I don't need 1,000 customers. I need 10 to start with, and that would be great. And so, so I think that's another mistake that I made, is I kind of shied away from the areas that seemed overserved until I had that, that coaching moment. I was like, oh, hang on a second. I'm thinking about this wrong. The other thing that I did wrong is I listened to all the influencers. And I did everything they said to do. And guess what? I made no money. And so from that perspective, the idea, I'm going to date myself here, but that whole Ron Popeil, set it and forget it, on the TV infomercials back when I was younger, your business isn't like that. And people will not buy coaching services unless your hands are on it. And unless they get to work with you, and unless they get to have your, that's the whole reason you're here. And that's the whole reason want to be a coach, is to help people transform. Yeah. So the idea that a lot of these big names are just selling the, snake oil, quite frankly, that you can, build this magical thing, do your click funnels, and all of a sudden you're going to be a millionaire, is crap. It's like, you got to work, and you got to get in, you got to get your hands dirty, and you have to personally service your clients. Yeah. Because there's 2 things that happen. They get results and you learn. And as you learn, then you get smarter, better, faster, and more efficient with the things that you're able to do, so you can serve more clients. So I think the early days, I made the mistake of thinking I knew what my audience wanted, and I didn't ask. Then, I listened to all the influencers and did all the things they said and made no money. And then I think that the next thing that I really, that I did not make a mistake on, that I think is important for entrepreneurs, is to think about your business as a science experiment. Okay. Right? Because so many of us go in and we're like, I'm doing this, and that's it, and I'm going to do this, and this is my lane. And then all of the things are telling you this is a terrible idea, but you're going to still do that. Whereas if you give yourself the mental permission and the emotional permission to say, this is a test, this is an experiment, I'm going to see how this goes. And then I'm going to take the things that worked out of this launch, or out of this campaign, or out of this offer. And then I'm going to understand the things that didn't. And then I'm going to try something different the next time for the things that didn't. And so when you're in this consistent experimental mindset, there's no pass or fail. It's just learning. Right. And then as you learn, you grow, and you start to, really just hone in on the things that work for you. And it's different for every coach or every entrepreneur, right, in terms of what works and what doesn't. And so you've got to make those decisions quickly. I remember when COVID hit, as the career strategy work was the lion's share of the business that I was doing as a solopreneur. And it was great, right? I had 25 clients, we're all doing our thing, everything is great. And then COVID hit. And 2 things, because I was only working privately with my clients at that point. And then 2 things happened. Demand went through the roof, right? I mean, the emails I got on LinkedIn were almost impossible to keep up with. But no one wanted to pay my rates anymore because I'm expensive. And so, I was like, okay, slow, not stupid. Let's think about this. And I'm like, okay, so demand is high. Pricing pressures are also high. I converted my one-on-one program into a group coaching program. And through that group coaching program, I mean, it just blew up, right? It just was so successful because it really gave people the best of both worlds. They got what they needed, Plus, they were able to actually get that socialization that we all suddenly had taken away from us, during COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to worry about money, right? Because it was now a much more economical price point. Now, I didn't have group coaching programs in my strategy. It wasn't something I was interested in doing, but the market changed on a dime and I had to do something.
Okay.
And I was locked out of Belize because we were over in the UK. So I was stuck in the UK for 4 months and had nothing to do but work. So I'm like, may as well get this done. And so then we did that. And that really worked well for a couple of years. And guess what? It stopped working. Same program,
Oh.
same funnels, same everything, but it stopped working because people now wanted to work privately again. Economy's
Post-COVID.
good, yes, right? So that went for 2 years, maybe a little bit longer, but then the client's needs went back to, I want private work now. Right. And so it was really, really interesting to so as an entrepreneur, you always got to pay attention.
Okay.
And don't let things go too long before you make that change or that pivot.
Yep.
So, so I think that's one of my spidey senses is really good in terms of instinct on where we're headed. And then the last thing I'll talk about, especially for service-based businesses, is you don't want to be a one-trick pony. Right. Coaching is really challenging in that when you solve it, you don't want lifetime clients. You want them to solve their problem and then not need you anymore. I mean, ultimately, that's the goal.
Yeah.
But what I have found through some really good coaching, because I get coached, right? I've got some really good coaches because that helps me, be more effective.
Yeah.
And so one of them helped me realize that every time a client solves a problem and achieves a goal, new obstacles and opportunities are presented.
Exactly.
That they're equally unprepared for. Right. So if you've got an executive that just moved into a brand new industry as a senior leader, they probably don't know how to get onboarded properly and make the right relationships because everyone's watching you and waiting for you to screw up. Right. So we help clients in their first 90 days. Or, if we've got a client who has wanted to get promoted and they finally get promoted to the C-suite, well, what do you do to support them? And so build your programs, make sure you're able to handle the life cycle of your client.
Okay.
So that way, as they grow, you can continue to support them. And it's not like, I'm sorry, we can't help you anymore because I don't have anything else to go. I don't have anything else to work with. So just really think about what's next for your customer and be there so you can catch them when they're ready. And so these are things that have taken me several years to not only learn, but master. And now it really has gotten to the point where our clients just naturally roll in, and so what we've done this year is we've moved to a subscription-based model. So there's no start or stop to a coaching engagement. It's just a certain amount per month. And we have 3 different levels. They can get different levels of support, but that way, as opportunities continue to present themselves or obstacles show up, we're ready and well positioned to help them continue to be successful. And that's worked out very, very well in terms of our lifetime value with our clients, their overall experience, because they know they've got somebody in their corner all the time. And so if you're really thinking about getting into the entrepreneurial space, or you're there now and you're a coach that's struggling with the ups and downs, right? Sell. Well, I got something, deliver. So now you're not selling, right? And then, got to go back and get something again. So that, up and down, having some of these ideas in your portfolio will help smooth that out a bit and create a little bit more of a predictable business for you.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really beautiful. And actually, what I love is that, Tammy, what you said is that experimenting and also innovating, like as our clients grow, we also have to grow and pay close attention. Is that what they need? What are the signals coming out? And how we also need to constantly innovate our own business model. It's not that we have learned the one good trick and then keep doing that. That's a great learning. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I have one question, Tammy, for you. Like, what are the mindset shift that help you to ensure this transformation? Because being in a corporate has its own merits and benefits, right? And then being on your own, it's a different game altogether. So what are those mindset shifts must for the people who are doing this transition?
It's a great question. I was a hot mess for the first 2 years. Every time a client bought from me, I'm like, yes, I can take on the world. And every time they said no, I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to do this. Right. It was a mess. And fortunately for me, my partner has had his own business for 20 years.
Okay.
And so he was very, I'd be like, oh, and he'd be like, calm down, you got this, right?
Mhm.
And I think so in terms of mindset, the thing that really helped me change in, because I'm a natural salesperson, I can,
Mhm.
I'm comfortable with that. I have no problem asking for the business, that kind of thing. But what I was missing is the fact that, especially in coaching, it's got to be not only the right person, but it's got to be the
Mhm.
right time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
not and so there's been several situations where because I'm such a good salesperson, like people joined because of my enthusiasm or because of whatever, but it wasn't the right time for them and it didn't work well.
Mm.
And so I just had to really get into that mindset that, it's not about me. It's not about my timing. It's about helping them. And there's been clients who have, come back to me a year later and signed a giant contract, because things in their world have changed. So,
Hmm.
coaching entrepreneurial, when you think about the businesses that you're doing, you really want to realize that, there's a lot that you can control, but sometimes
Mhm.
pushing it and forcing it is not going to help anyone. Your
True.
client's not going to get the results. You're going to work twice as hard trying to help them get the results, and no one ends up happy.
Yeah.
The other thing too, I think is important is to focus on the things that either make money or create an impact for your clients. So many people spend way too much time, myself included, on the
Mhm.
logo, the font, the website, like all the things that at the end of the day don't matter. Right? You need that there, but it is not going to be a make or break situation. And so go light on the infrastructure to start, but
Hmm.
really focus on what you need
Mhm.
is the ability to, so if it's not making money or delivering an impact, you shouldn't be spending a lot of your time doing it. And I remember, I used to like my email list. Like I was a nut about my email list. Like I had to grow it. I had to grow it. I had to grow it because that's what all the influencers said I had to do. So that's what I did.
Mhm.
And someone said, and it was never enough. Like I would do a launch or a lead magnet or whatever, and we get a couple more hundred people or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I still want more. I still want more. And my sales weren't growing. And then someone's
Hmm.
like, you should probably love on the people that you have instead of worrying about constantly getting more. And so when I started to stop having that FOMO of, oh my
Mhm.
goodness, this person got 1 million views on their social media post and I got 20, right? I would be like, okay, who does love me? And let me love them back. And let me just do that one person at a time.
Okay.
And so once I stopped worrying about everybody else and just started focusing on the ones that were leaning into my message, things
Mhm.
changed significantly, right? Instead of always worrying about, trying to keep up with, people who have a 20-year head start on me.
Okay.
So that was also a big learning moment for me is
Yeah.
like, I'm just going to love the ones that love me first. And then we're going to see how that goes. And it worked out really well.
Beautiful.
Wow, that's
Mhm.
so beautiful. And before we even stay further, we always ask this one particular question to everyone because we call this as a lead talk moment. Okay. So Tammy, what is that lead talk moment for you when you decided like this is my life, this is how I lead, and that was the talk on your mind. Now nobody else tells me what to do. So what is that lead talk moment for you when you realize I'm made for something different?
Probably when I was 5.
Oh.
Never played by the rules. And I was always the exception. I'm like, oh, that applies to other people, right? So in terms of charting my own way, like, I never played with kids my own age. I always wanted to sit at the grown-up table and listen to what they were talking about. It drove my mom
Mhm.
crazy. But I've always done things my own way.
Okay.
And
Wow.
and I've been, very fortunate of having some amazing mentors throughout different levels of my career, which really helped, help give me the space to do it. So I've always been the long shot, the outcast, the one that doesn't belong.
Mm.
That's always been where I put myself. And so from that perspective, I don't know how to do anything differently. And
Hmm.
realizing that that's not normal for everyone, because if you have it, you assume everyone else does. I'm not special.
Mhm.
Then you realize, oh, hang on a second, we can help other people find their path, right? And being able to have those lead talk moments for themselves. So yeah, I think we're gonna give a little bit of credit to genetics for having that important lead talk moment for me at least.
Wow,
Oh,
wow.
wonderful.
That's such a superb answer, and I love that. And yeah, I must say, like you are really special because to have that lead talk moment so early. So
Mm.
people have to struggle a lot to break the specific beliefs or to overcome. So did you also have some beliefs that you had to overcome, where you felt that they were holding you back initially or at some point in life?
Yes. Because coming from my background and constantly being over my skis in terms of roles that I'm like, I don't even know how I got here, right? And so many times I would get promoted, I'd be like, why? It's like, because I've seen myself, I'm like, I don't belong here. And, so with that came a very heavy dose of imposter syndrome all the time, right? Because I don't belong here. These people are pedigreed and well-traveled and wealthy. I was poor, and all these things. I'm like, I don't belong here. And that persisted throughout most of my career. And even as a coach, in the early days. And I'll never forget, I was working at Bank of America, and we were solving a very big problem. We had just bought Merrill Lynch. And so it was a financial crisis. Everything was a hot mess. And I was in regulatory compliance of all things.
Oh.
Now, you have compliance because of me, right? So I have no idea how I ended up there. And so I was, trying to keep the Merrill guys out of jail as all these regulators were losing their minds. And I'll never forget, I was in one of the executives' office. And, it was a cage match. We were just screaming at each other because I needed something done in the EU. He didn't want to do it. I'm like, you're going to look terrible in Dayglow Orange. Like, my job is to keep you out of jail. We need to do this. So long story short, and he was very senior level. So his admin pushed through a phone call. And, so he's like, John's on the phone. So of course, this guy that I'm talking to is a total jerk. So he puts it on speaker. And on the other phone's like, hey, dude, how'd I do last night? I was like, and I knew the voice right away. It was John McCain. And he was calling this guy to find out how he did after his first debate with Barack Obama. I was like, holy crap, what am I doing here? Like, I just want to crawl into the desk and just get the hell out of there, right? So it was just crazy. And so I went into my boss's office and I'm like, I don't belong here. I'm not an attorney, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like going off. I'm like, I don't belong here. I don't know why I'm here. I can't get anything done. And she just let me rant for a bit. And then she's like, are you done? And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm done. I'm like, I'm out. I'm like, I'm going to post for something else. She's like, no, you're not. Let me tell you why you're here. She goes, you're here because you didn't get here like everybody else. You don't think like everyone else. You are here because you're not part of the problem and you're not afraid to challenge conventional thinking to help us get through this issue. And as soon as she gave me the permission to be at the table, not despite the fact that I was different, but because I was different, all of a sudden I stepped into it. And I'm like, oh, now I get it. Wish I had heard that statement about 20 years ago, would have been handy. So for that, like all of us have these moments where we're like, I don't think, I don't know why I'm doing this, or I can't do this, or I shouldn't be doing this, or, what makes me special, what makes me different. But realize that you've got a purpose to serve. And most often, because you don't come at it like everyone else does, that's your superpower. And that's what you need to embrace and hone in on and really, really leverage in terms of a strength.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely fantastic.
This is very, very interesting. And just talking about the fact that you are allowed to be in this unique position because of your difference. I wanted to speak a little bit about what you believe makes you different from the rest of the trainers, the leaders, and the coaches out there, because this is very important. And because somebody said this to you, so just tell us a little more about this.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, I think the things that make me different, there's a few things I think that make me different because of my experiences and the way I think, and it's because it's so naturally different from how most other people think. The things that I recommend are light bulb moments for them, but very natural for me, right? It's like, well, why don't you just do this or stop doing that? Or, think about this. Because my coaching style is very advisory, right? So I call it coach salting, right? So sometimes people just want to, you just tell me what to do. It's like, I'm stressed. I don't want to deal with this anymore. What should I do? And then I'm like, all right, I'll tell you what you should do. Or, because of my style, I'll be like, don't do that. That's the dumbest thing ever. And I'm like, here's why this is going to backfire. Right. And so I'm very politically astute. I have no problem helping my clients figure out how to navigate the politics within an organization, and things like that. So I think that's really where the value comes in, because I've been there.
Okay.
And I've sat in the boardroom. I've sat on the leadership table when it's everybody's fighting for promotions and raises for their teams.
Mhm.
You know, I've sat in those meetings where they're handed a spreadsheet and say, okay, you've got 1 hour to cut your team by 20%. You know, I've sat through all of these things that are just, most people don't have access to that.
True.
And unless you know how things work behind the scenes, you can't help people navigate as effectively. And so, you know, a really good example is one of my clients who I'm working on with a career strategy change. You know, recently they're downsizing, so they had to get rid of a few members of her team, and she realized that she was going to be impacted.
Okay.
And so she's like, what do I negotiate? So I threw it out to her. I'm like, you want this, 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 and this. And she's like, really? I'm like, do it. She got everything she asked for because I know how they think. Right now, she shouldn't on paper, according to her, got everything she asked for. But because I know how these things play, I can give her the confidence and say, no, this is going to work. Right. And this is why. And so that's really the fundamental difference, is having been in role and having seen how things work, you know, behind the curtain, so to speak. I'm able to help clients navigate more effectively and faster, and in a way where they're not committing career suicide at the same time. Right. So I think that's really, you know, the superpower that I bring to the table.
Wow, that's fantastic. It's
Beautiful.
not only speeding them up, but also cutting the chasing of the wrong things. That's what also matters.
Yeah.
So how do you help businesses and career professionals to love their Mondays?
Well, I think the first thing, because you know me, I believe everyone needs to, you know, to love Mondays, is to take the time and be completely selfish.
Okay.
And figure out what lights you up. Forget about what your spouse thinks or what your parents think you're supposed to do, or, you know, what your neighbors are doing, or, you know, I mean, we put ourselves in these, you know, these boxes because we're supposed to. And so, you know, one of the things, and I love Simon Sinek and, you know, the why. And so I really do love that 7 level of why, to kind of get down to the purpose of why you do anything, and use that as some of your guiding principles. But at the end of the day, you know, unless you know what lights you up, then you're not going to be able to find it. Right. So that's the first step to do. But then the other thing is, you really need to give yourself the accountability to take responsibility and control. And that's where becoming the CEO of your career comes in. So whether you're the CEO of your company as an entrepreneur, or whether you're a CEO sitting in a corporate role, you need to own it. Because if you don't own it, no one else will.
Yeah.
And so many people wait for the right thing, or, you know, they're promised a promotion 3 years in a row, or all this crap that goes on that we all see every day, and they sit there and take it.
Yeah.
Why? Right? You shouldn't be doing that. And so when you start to treat your career like a business, so you've got your foundation of, this is the stuff I love to do, right? Light me up, love it. Then you start to take more of a business-minded approach to your career. You show up differently and you make different decisions. And a great example that I see every minute of every day, it drives me nuts, is when people get more responsibility, right? They get, you know, more work and no more pay. And they just do it because that's what you're supposed to do. However, as a CEO of your company, if you went into a company and said, okay, I'm going to charge you this much money for this work, and then the company says, oh, well, we need a little bit more work done, that's called scope creep, and you're going to charge them more.
Exactly. And
so if you're in that mindset as a CEO and you're sitting in corporate, the answer is no. I'm not taking this growth opportunity, which is free labor. Right. And so, you know, and that's just a very common example. But when you say no, all of a sudden they're like, oh, hang on a second. Why not? because I don't have the title, I don't have the pay, and you're asking me to do extra work. No. Right. If you give me the comp, title, not for tomorrow, but for today, because I'll do the work tomorrow. If you want to give it to me tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. But if you want to give it me today, then we'll do it today. And when you start to push back on that stuff, you would be surprised how much the money front suddenly frees up.
Wow.
It does, right? Companies will only pay you what they can get away with, not what you deserve. And so if you don't advocate for your value, I hate to say it, I don't mean to be mean, but that's your fault. Right. And so, you know, you need to be that advocate. And as a company, as a CEO, you would do that. You know, the other thing we do as CEOs is, if you don't have a sales team, you're not going to be around for very long. And so when you suddenly treat your career as a business, you keep your network fresh. You make sure you're out there and that you've got a personal, you know, you've got a brand, you know, you're doing other things as part of your career because you're taking it from a business mindset. not from an employer mindset. And so these subtle things that don't require a lot of time, but from a mindset perspective, will put you in the position that you need to be in to step into every Monday, because you know that if it doesn't serve you, you're not going to do it anymore.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful. Because I like the fact that you bring the concept that if I am in corporate space, I have to run my position as a business. And I like that. And I'm sure Coach Shilpa would love that as well. And so let's just talk a little.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about the element of leadership in this, because you're a people developer. You've done so many things with your own teams and helping companies build their teams as well. And as a person over the 30 years and now being a CEO of your own company, how do you say your leadership evolved over the years?
It evolved a lot, right?
Mhm.
Because when I was early days in management, I wouldn't even call myself a leader. You're just directing tasks and hoping everyone likes you, and all that kind of fun stuff, right? And so, but you do need to kind of find your authentic style. And unbeknownst to me, it was funny. I had the nickname in my corporate that I didn't know about until years later when we all went out for drinks and we had too much tequila. So they finally told me. But my nickname was the Velvet Hammer.
Okay.
And so it was
Wow.
I didn't know what to think of it at first. I was like,
Wow.
okay, I'm not sure what, but what they were trying to say is that, we always had fun. I gave people enough room to run so they felt like they owned it. But if you didn't get your stuff done, don't misinterpret my friendliness and the fact that we laugh in every staff meeting as complacency.
Mhm.
Right. And so performance, accountability, all that stuff was very high
Strong.
expectations.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that's really, I always wanted to be, because I've had my share of amazing leaders and I've had my share of horrible leaders, right? And I think we all
Mhm.
have.
Yeah.
But I've always wanted to be the leader that people chose to follow,
Okay.
because they can follow you because the org chart says they have to, right? And they do, although not as effectively. But I did so much transformation work, and the teams that I led went so far beyond people that were in my org that I needed to build those skills to get people to leave, not because they had to, because they want to. And some key elements in terms of leadership, I think transparency is huge. I had no problem telling people I had no idea.
Okay.
And most leaders won't say that, right? They'll pretend they're supposed to have all the answers. I'm like, you were no smarter 2 days ago before you got this promotion. So why all of a sudden do you think you have to have all the answers? So be really quick to say, I'm out of my depth. I need to get some experts around the table. Let's talk about this, right? So I was willing to do that. I was willing to course correct when I made a bad decision. Right? How many times do you see these projects go on forever, and everyone knew 2 years ago this was never going to work, right? And so I have the courage to say, we're not wasting any more money. Let's do this. And the thing I developed later in my career is, I just spent more time really getting to know my team on a more personal level. I didn't do that for a very, very long time. I kept business and personal separate. But to be a good leader, I think you really need to make sure that you're connecting with your team, and that you're showing them how to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So from a leadership perspective, I really think that those were some of the key elements that really helped me grow.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. I love that. So now thinking back, because you've really gone through a lot of things. So what would you say are those mistakes that you'd like the new leaders not to do? The mistakes you did yourself that you want kind of prevent?
Yeah, absolutely. Prevent those mistakes, right? So for new leaders, make sure that you understand what you're good at and what you're not.
Okay.
And then realize that you will never get good at the things you're not. You may get adequate, but you will never get good at it. And so stop trying to fix all the crap you're bad at and find other people who have those strengths and get them on your team.
Yeah.
Right. That's how I was able to scale quickly in terms of growing my career, because I suck at numbers. I hate stats. I need the metrics because I need to make decisions, but that's not my jam. And so, in terms of, and compliance and contracts, I hated all that stuff. And so, but when I finally realized I'm never going to get good at it, so let me just bring people in that are good at it, then all of a sudden the entire team's profile elevated, right? So that's number one. Number two is never be afraid. And actually, you need to actively find people who are smarter than you and will tell you you're wrong. Right? It's not a luxury item, it is a necessity. And so many leaders are afraid of hiring people smarter than them because they're afraid they're going to get fired.
Yeah.
Or this person's going to take my job, or I'm going to look dumb, or whatever. It's so far from the truth, it's not even funny. So surround yourself with people who are smarter than you and who will tell you your baby's ugly. Because the higher up you get, the less people will be honest with you because you have a bigger shadow. Exactly. And unless your leadership team is sitting there saying, this is a terrible idea, and you're willing to listen instead of saying, no, it's not, I'm the boss, listen to me. So I think from that perspective, really making sure that not only they have the ability to, but they're accountable for challenging. Like I know before we kicked off any of the big projects, I would have one meeting specifically where everyone had to come with at least 3 things that were going to go terribly wrong. And then that way, and like, so you couldn't say anything nice. Like all you could do is say bad things and mean things, in terms of, testing and challenging the ideas. And so when you start to build that type of culture where, everyone, is required to have a voice and a dissenting voice. So that way you get a better outcome. It's much more fun and you move faster. So those would be my pieces of advice for that.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. So I want us to move to something that is important. Those of us, you and me and Coach Shilpa and listeners, because everybody talks about mentors and you talked about your own mentors, you getting your own coach and being coached, and Coach Shilpa and we all have our own coaches as well. So who are these most influential mentors that made you successful as on the way you are today?
Yeah, I had 2. One very early in my career. So, where I was 18, because I didn't go to college, right? So I started working right out of high school. And, he saw things in me that I didn't even know I had. And, I don't know what it was exactly, but, every time there was something new that had to happen, or he wanted to try, he was a franchise owner I started my career with Manpower, which was a light industrial and clerical temporary staffing firm. And so I started as a recruiter. And so he owned the franchise in South Philly and in New Jersey. His name was Marty Klein. And every time there was something new, he would put me on it. Like, try this and see what we can do with it. And, I didn't know any better. I was 18. I'm like, okay, I'll try and then see what happens. And so, he really paved the way for me to kind of become fearless. I didn't know any better, so I didn't know to be afraid. And as I went through my career, I kept, okay, I'll try it, kind of became my little mantra. And so Marty was, just completely instrumental in helping me get there. And then later in my career, we're still really good friends to today. His name is Dan Choi, and he brought me into Bank of America. And he is a phenomenal leader. And, I'm a bit of I can be a bit of a handful, right? Sometimes. And I'll remember, we both relocated from New York City to Charlotte, North Carolina. And so that's southern, the southern part of the States. And, and the cultures are very different, right? The southern culture is very laid back, very polite, deferential, kind, whereas Wall Street, it's just like, you're in Shark Tank, quite literally, right? And so I'll never forget, Dan, we were having drinks one night and I was like, I feel like I went from like a pool of sharks to a pool of minnows, right? I'm like, I was really having a hard time adjusting to the lack of my perception of intensity. And he's like, you are not swimming with minnows, you're swimming with dolphins. And a pod of dolphins can kill a shark like that. He's like, wow. I was like, oh, so I actually got like a wooden dolphin figure and put it on my desk. I trained myself, like, you're not like these people, these are not, people, and they're smart. And, so it was really interesting to really help me change how I showed up as a leader, because if they weren't as assertive as I was, or as direct, we would drop F-bombs in a conference room without thinking twice about it in New York. And, but not having the mindset of, well, because you're not my version of ambitious, that you're not ambitious, or because you're not screaming at the top of your lungs to get your point across, that you don't have something important to say.
Okay.
And so that pod concept of, dolphins that work together and can definitely kill a shark, in
That's
very,
great.
very short order was a great way for me to start to pivot my leadership. So Dan was also a very influential coach, and he was my boss at first, but then, really helped me figure out, how to, really go big with all the things that I had done. Right. And so I think that was really helpful in terms of scaling my leadership capabilities to go from, teams of 50 to teams of 2,000. Which is a different ball game. So yeah, those are, I think, two of the best mentors that I've had in my career.
And that's beautiful. So what are some of the key lessons, maybe 2 or 3, that you learned from this mentorship journey that you'd like to pass to people who are kind of on the fence saying, okay, should I go and work with Tammy? Should I work with so-and-so? Like people who are not very familiar with the mentorship journey.
I think in order to benefit from having a mentor, you've got to be in a growth mindset.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a mentor to try and justify why things aren't working out for you, that's not going to work. Right. So whether you work with me, whether you work with any of the other great coaches that are out there, I think you really need to have that growth mindset. You also have to be comfortable with failing.
Okay.
Because you're going to try new things and they don't all work. Right. And so, and it just, I think that the biggest mindset shift is to think about when you have, when you're going into coaching or when you're going into mentoring, is so many people think that success and failure are binary. Like one is the opposite of the other. But the reality is failure is part of success. You can't be successful unless you failed. You just can't. It doesn't work. And so I think, that mindset, if you're stepping in, you want to have a growth mindset and you want to realize that, the learning journey is both, your wins and your losses and how you continue to grow from those. And so I think those are the most important things when you decide to work with a coach, whether it's me or anyone else.
Oh, beautiful. I love the fact that you're saying success and failure, it's like a banknote. It's the same thing. One is just the other side, one is there, but they do really the same job. So what would be your top 3 books that you recommend for people in the journey of transition or people who are already in your business?
I really don't have a top 3 that I love. I'm more of a get what I need and get out kind of girl. And so what I would encourage people to do though is to move into the continuous learning cycle, right? Where you always want to do that. But the thing that I always do is I try and find people that have a contrarian point of view. Like I want to listen and lean into people who are saying things that disagree, that go against the norm, right? That don't fall into the same crap everyone else is saying, right? It's like, all right, you can spend 5 minutes and get all that kind of stuff. And so they don't come out all the time, right? It's really kind of hit or miss. So, but I think if you're always trying to figure out, okay, what's going on? And I think, have your own opinion on things. And one of the benefits I have from not living in America, and most of our clients are there, is I'm not there listening to the media all the time and the fear mongering and the gloom and doom and the this, right? I'm here in my little happy bubble, on tropical island somewhere. And so I'm not uninformed. I don't listen too much to all the fear mongering that's going on. So I think, I'm sorry, I don't have 3 books to recommend for you, but I do think, actively seek people who think differently, and lay off all the social and the news because it's not helping you.
Wow. That's really profound. And we love your answer, right, Dr. Gerald? It's
That's
like,
fantastic.
what specifically, like finally, what are books for giving us new insights? As long as you continue to get that, I think it's as good as reading hundreds of books, Tammy. So that was a profound advice.
That is profound.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I move to my next question, I want to ask you, because you shared that you have experienced many light bulb moments in your client's journey. Would you like to share with us any specific story which touched your heart about your client experience, or when you see that you are able to bring such a transformation in somebody's life? So would you want to share some of those moments with us?
Yeah, I think the biggest moment, right, that shows up during coaching, let's just talk specifically career strategy, because that's I think the one that requires the most courage.
Yes.
Is once they've gone through the deconstruction process of what lights me up and takes away all of the expectations that they've assumed are that they have to play by in terms of, expectations from family, peers, whatever. And they start to hone in on and they really identify that thing that has been eluding them for years. Because most people that come to me like, I know I hate what I'm doing. I don't know what I want to do next. And if you're sitting here at 45, 50 years old and you don't know what you want to do next, there's a lot of guilt and shame that comes with that because you should have this figured out by now is the mindset. And the reality is no one has this figured out, but that's a big secret, right? So they think they're the only ones that don't have their act together. And so that moment of, oh, okay, I'm not alone. And that freedom that they feel once they have identified what their next thing is going to be is magic. Because these people can execute, right? They can get shit done because they've been doing this their whole career. It's just that moment of, this is it. That's my thing. And so when they get there, and just the freedom that they feel of like finally having this sorted out is just magic. And that is, that's some of my favorite parts, right? And the other things I love is just years later when I get those emails that, I changed and did something different, or I got this, or I thought about you and did this and it worked. And like, knowing is like years since we've spoken, I was like, oh, that makes me feel good. Right. So that's, that always, so yes, I think that kind of feedback is always fun.
And that is the best part of being a coach or a mentor, right? This fulfilling moments when you see somebody else's joy coming out and they discovering themselves, not anything else. Like, I think that is the biggest thing, but that's the biggest contribution by you as a coach and a mentor. And having known that your beautiful journey, Tammy, starting from 3 decades of corporate life, having this entrepreneur experience, breaking all the, rules and making Mondays wonderful again for everybody else. What are you doing now to get to the next level of your significance?
Yes. So this, we have to keep changing, right? That's what keeps me happy. So I was like, oh, okay, we've already mastered this part. Let's do something different. So I'm so excited about what we're heading into for this year. Over the past 5 years, I've been building, and again, you don't know it, right? You're just doing what comes natural. But I've been building really a rock star infrastructure to run a coaching company.
Wow.
Because, you can take the girl to Wall Street, but you can't take the Wall Street out of the girl. So I love processes. I love tech. I love all the things, right? So I like, even though it's a little company, I was running it like a proper organization because I always wanted to not have a side hustle, and I was like, well, what are you doing? What kind of business do you? I'm like, I want an empire. That's what I'm building is an empire, not just a commercially viable hobby. And so, so from that perspective, the coaching portal, the programs, like all of the social media, all the accounting and operational things, like everything is done. And it's been done through trial and error, but looking at that, in Q4 last year, I was like, hang on a second. So what we're doing now is we're bringing new coaches in.
Wow.
And so because so many coaches are good at what they do and they just hate all the things that it takes to run a business. It's like, if I could just find new clients and sell and let somebody else worry about all the other crap, like just think about how much more fulfilled they would be and how much more impact they can make because they can reach more clients. I mean, you guys know, you spend a lot of time, doing the operational and the lights on stuff, right? In addition to that. So what we're doing is we're bringing in coaches now that all they want to do is find new clients that deliver amazing experiences. And they're able to use our entire platform with my team for support to help them grow. And that's done in a revenue share model. And so they don't even pay anything up front. We've got a model where if they don't win, we don't win. And it's really exciting, right? So we've got our first cohort that we are kicking off in 2 weeks. And then we're going to be doing cohorts throughout the year. So it's just really an exciting opportunity to help scale the business and help coaches grow their business at the same time. So I'm very, very excited about where we're headed with this.
That's wonderful vision. That's wonderful vision. And I'm sure like most of the people who are in this transition journey and they have identified their passion as a coach and have an ability to bring in transformation, but don't want to get into the hassle of forming a business around it, I think they would find this as a blessing for sure. So definitely they would find your connection with you here. And we would advise all our passionate
Excellent.
people on this audience and our listeners is to make the most opportunity of this. It doesn't
Yes.
come quite often. And it also is coming from a person who's like you, Tammy, who's opening out the world out there of
Yeah.
opportunities for the
Yeah.
coaches. So that's amazing. And before we move to our rapid fire round, I want to ask you what question you wish we should have asked you, but we failed to ask you.
Oh, I think we covered a lot today, right?
Okay.
There's always one question.
Yeah, I'm like, nope, we didn't leave anything out today. So I think we're even with the technical glitch, I think we are good.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, fantastic. So let's get ahead with the rapid fire. So I'm just going to ask you quick questions, and Dr. Gerald will ask you two questions just for a quick answers, right? So here it comes. So Tammy, tell us what was your most embarrassing moment?
Oh, there's so many. But
Okay.
I think my most embarrassing moment, because I'm terrible with names, is I was in this huge meeting, this very senior executive that had to make the decisions, and I kept calling him the wrong name the entire meeting, and no one corrected me in flash. Like I'm in an hour, right, of calling this very very important person by the wrong name.
Okay.
That's
Great.
cute.
That's really cute. So
Yeah.
what is that one thing you love about being financially independent, really?
I get to scuba dive before work whenever I want.
Wow. Wow,
Wow.
fantastic.
That's
What are your
wonderful.
top three values?
Accountability, fun,
Mhm.
and making an impact.
Wow,
Wow.
beautiful. Tammy, what is that one thing you simply cannot tolerate?
Ooh. People who take everything too seriously.
I love that.
That's superb. That's
In
superb.
our case specifically, like we are not curing cancer, right? And we are, so let's just have some fun with this, right? Everyone takes life way too seriously, and so yeah, when people are super serious, that's not my jam.
I love it.
Fantastic.
I
What
like
is your
that.
top one achievement? Like you would say, oh, this what makes my journey worthwhile.
Um, I think my biggest achievement is my daughter.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And she is a, great human being living her best life, doing her things on her terms. Surprise, surprise. And so, yeah, I'm going to say that is absolutely my top achievement.
What's her name?
Emily.
Oh,
Wow.
beautiful, beautiful.
Beautiful.
And
That's
what is
nice.
that one? Yeah, absolutely. What is that one thing, Tammy, you wish you knew in your 20s?
Oh, I wish I knew that I deserved a seat at the table.
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
Spent so much time being insecure and imposter syndrome and pretending I belonged, even though I didn't feel like I belonged. If I really knew I
Mm.
belonged, because I did, that would have saved a lot of time and overthinking. So yeah, that's the one thing I wish I knew in my 20s.
Wow.
Wow, that's
Talk
so
about
beautiful.
leaders.
There, unless, you're not there by accident. You're there because you deserve to be there. And so the sooner we can give ourselves credit for that and really
Mm.
believe it, I think the easier our journeys become.
Yeah, that
Wow.
will save so much of an anxiety and so much of that worrisomeness all throughout our journey. We become worriers
Yeah.
because of that one constant thing on our mind. Yes, over to you, Dr. Gerard.
Absolutely. Talk about leadership, knowing that you absolutely a syndrome for such a long time. So now, what do you love most about leading?
Um, I don't second guess anything anymore.
Wow.
Mm.
I learn and but I don't second guess anything. And so being able to just naturally bring that to the surface
Okay.
creates a leadership style that makes other people feel bold too.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not special. Like, I don't do anything that everybody else doesn't do. So when they see just the natural ability of
Mm-hmm.
just being able to do that, then like, oh, I could do that too. And so I love that part about leadership.
Yes. And
Mhm.
so what would you say is your most commonest type of leadership style?
Say that again. My most
Yeah, your most common leadership style that you like to adopt.
directness. I think that is my most common is empathetic directness,
Okay.
right? So I will get the elephant out of the room,
Mm-hmm.
but in a way that's fun, lighthearted, and meant to get to the bottom of whatever's going on, not to cast blame or any of that kind of fun stuff, right? So I think that is really, in terms of my leadership style, it's just being direct, but also being very empathetic in the process.
I love that. And so what's your top leadership aspiration as a mentor today?
I think I mentioned this before. My top aspiration is to have a coaching empire. Right. So I want an organization that is the go-to place, with coaches that are just crushing it every day for their clients and, stepping into all the things that light them up. So we can, make a difference in, thousands of people's lives, not just hundreds.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And so what leadership lesson stuck with you most, looking back at all these journeys you've traveled?
It's just trusting your people and empowering them to do what they do best. And so, doing that naturally in corporate, as I grew, but then spending a few years as a solopreneur where you're doing all the things all by yourself, pretty much, and now moving into a team again, it's an interesting transition because now this is all my stuff, right? This is stuff I built, this is stuff I do. And so it's been a really interesting transition to just let them go and just do it, right? It's like, it's out of my head. Now you do it in your way. And so that is, I think that's been a fun, reacclimation, shall we say, in terms of my leadership style.
Oh, beautiful. I just love that. And we are really excited what you've shared. And so one of the things we customarily do, Tammy, is we like to expand the network of people we bring here who can add immense value. So who would be these 3 people you'd recommend for us to reach out, or you could recommend to be interviewed on this podcast?
Let's see. I love Maureen Metcalf and what she's doing. She's fantastic. And she's one of our, referral coaches. So she's amazing. Susan Hollister, who is also on the CWC team. So she's our chief success officer. She's got a fantastic background of experience and things like that. So I think she's also a very, very good person for everyone to look up. And then I think for entrepreneurs, and people who are really trying to figure out, what do I do? How do I do it? All that kind of fun stuff. Trying to think of who I would think is a really good person for you guys to reach out to, right? And things like that. So I think Tracy Burnett is probably, she's helped me a lot in terms of, my LinkedIn and messaging and, client acquisition and stuff like that. So I would recommend her.
Beautiful.
Wow, fantastic. And
who would be the
I think she said 3. I think she's already given 3.
Okay. I just got
Tracy Burnett. Third one is Tracy Burnett.
So we got Tracy, we got Susan, and
Maureen.
Yeah.
Okay, great, fantastic. And thank you so much, Tammy, and such a wonderful insight. And I could see the whole journey in front of my eyes because you are really an epic storyteller. Like we would actually be experiencing as if it's happening in front of our eyes with your, such a lovely energy and a vibe and that beautiful smile oozing out of your charm, So we love this interaction.
This has been great. It's been so much fun. So thank you very, very much for the time. It was great talking to you guys today.
Thank you, Dr. Gerald. Take it away.
Yes, and one of the things we always like to do is, so we've got your social media. So listeners, we definitely, you've heard, this has been a terrific interview. You've learned so much. There's so much Tammy can offer. And so we'd like you to reach out to our go to our social media, be part of our community. And if you're here for the first time, we'd like you to subscribe to this podcast, download and share it with your colleagues, and also join our private community. But most importantly, there is a gift that Tammy has given, right? So it's how you are going to move to the next level. And so we are going to leave the link below, and it's absolutely wonderful that you go right in and be part of our community and spread the message that she's out here helping you in your career transition, helping you if you're an established coach, go out and explore her platform. She's created this amazing opportunity where you can come and share your gift with her. And in the process, really get out to help and transform your clients And this is the empire she's working on right now, down in Belize, right? It's a beautiful
That's right.
place, and she's out here to help you. And are there any closing remarks Tammy would like to make before I send you over to Shilpa?
Just thank you so much. This has been so great. And I think that, at the end of the day, if you are not waking up excited on a Monday morning, change it.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it. Just, you don't have to do that. Change it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. That's
I love
beautiful.
that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that message. It's so inspiring because those who all you are listening to it and you are experiencing this Monday morning blues,
Yes.
it need not be that way. It is just a matter of a different decision. And there are people out there like Tammy. Please take the best help from her so that she can transform your life and your career together, because it goes hand in hand. So we are very glad to have her here. She has given us a different energy and inspiration, and she's been a
Absolutely.
wonderful guest. So we want to thank her from the bottom of our heart. At the same
Absolutely.
time, we want to encourage you to share your wonderful success story so you can be also part of a lead talk and you
Exactly.
inspire other people, especially if you're coaches,
Yeah.
consultants, mentors who are spreading out and changing the lives of other people. It's time that you come out of that closet and don't remain the best kept secret and let the world know about you. And we passionately love to serve coaches, and we are soon announcing something which can help you to grow in your life and embrace your uniqueness. So having said that, till the next time we come again with such a beautiful episode, do write to us for any engagements you would want to have with us at leadtalkpodcast.com. Also, please avail all the beautiful gifts our coaches and our guests are sharing with you.
Yes.
Until the next time we meet, take best care of yourself. Stop struggling, start winning, stop following, and start leading.
And absolutely, and make sure you get the ultimate career strategy guide. Absolutely.
Yes.
The link is down below, and we will see you in our next episode. Bye.
Thank you.
Sure. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.